Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today we're talking about this. This is the Crosscut Sled that I've made for my contractor's table saw that I have right here. This thing's pretty old and it is a contractor grade table saw, so I can't make very precise cuts with it, but this will actually help with that. What it primarily is going to be used for is cross-cutting smaller pieces of wood consistently and easily. Why, might you ask, would you need something like this if you have a chop saw? Which I actually do. The main benefit is actually you can cut a lot wider boards. As wide as this jig is, you can cut boards. Mine's about, 14 inches. I didn't actually take that measurement. This was just the width of some scrap stock that I had lying around. So I actually don't know what this width is here, but it's almost exactly the size of the top of my table saw. You do actually have a lot more versatility with this versus a chop saw. You can make all kinds of jigs to fit inside of this jig to do other things and cut crazy angles. You can do that on a chop saw as well, it's just a little bit harder. And this gives you something easy to mount to, being a wooden surface. It's a super easy project to make. I used some more scraps I had laying around from my bassinet project a few months ago and just threw it all together within just a couple hours. It didn't take me much time at all. It was really simple and easy to make. The one thing that I actually see immediately with this project is it may not work for all table saws. The table saw I have in the main shop that I use actually has some arms that stick off of one side and have a bar that go between them, but there's nothing over there that you could actually put this face against to have it square up to this. So it may not work on that style of table saw. But since this is such an easy project, let's get going. I'll show you how it's made. This is another project that I'm tackling at home with limited tools. I just want to point out that you don't need a lot to get started. Like I said, this is a piece of leftover stock from one of my previous projects, a bedside hanging bassinet. You can check that project out in the card above. The material itself is 1/2 inch MDF, which was salvaged from a dumpster. Hey, free is free, right? I measured the width of the top of my table saw and laid that out using the existing material to determine the depth. If you need a specific size of stock to fit in this jig, you'd want to consider that now and make sure it'll fit. Because I don't trust the accuracy of this table saw with the fence that it came with, I turned to my trusty circular saw. To keep my line straight, I used a jig out of another piece of scrap. Then the strips to be used as runners needed to be cut. Here you can see how difficult it can be to get good cuts with this saw due to that fence. I used it for these because they don't need to be very accurate and the narrower pieces are harder with the circular saw. These I measured out to a random number that seemed good to me. The only time you might need a specific measurement is if you need to clear something on the bottom of the saw, or if you're adding a lower lip to keep the jig fixed to the table. I didn't do any special joinery to attach the runners, just some butt joints with some screws and glue. You could of course do something more, most anything else will be stronger, but I'm not expecting this jig to last forever anyhow. That being said, I messed up on these butt joints. Twice. On the first side, my pilot holes ended up a little too small, so when I drove the screws in, the material split. It was pretty minor, and as I said, I don't expect this to last forever. It's a tool and it doesn't have to look pretty. On the other side, I somehow grabbed the wrong drill bit and made the holes way too big. I'm not even sure how that happened. That's fine, just move over and put the correct size holes next to them. That's the benefit of a project like this. If you mess up, it probably doesn't really matter. My top plate ended up being a little too tight to freely slide on top of the saw. That's actually exactly what I was going for, as you can remove material but not add it. That being said, I am removing material here using a sander. MDF particles aren't good to breathe, so wear some kind of mask. In lieu of recent events, there are no masks available anywhere, so I use this neck gaiter. After working on fitment for some time, it started to rain a bit, so I had to move into the garage. While doing this step, you need to be careful to remove stock evenly. If you don't, you could make the entire jig sit slightly canted, causing all cuts to have that same angle. Eventually, I got a nice sliding fit that once has some paste on it, it will operate very smoothly. Then I repeated the steps that were used for the runners to make the fence and the back wall. These measurements were also arbitrary, though you may want to make them a certain size for whatever stock you may be cutting. After everything was assembled, it was time to cut the slot for the blade to actually fit up through. This is pretty simple, just raise the blade as high as it will go and push the jig on over it. Now it's done. Like I said, this is a pretty simple project. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more DIY videos like this on Oddy Shop. Don't forget this is actually my second channel as well. My main channel where I do primarily gaming and just a lot of vlogs and other random stuff is actually just Random Oddy. So go check that out if that's what you're into, and I will see you guys in the next video.